Our next speaker is Chris Yu, Head of Digital Government Unit Policy Exchange. Now, Malcolm mentioned the possible shortage of people with relevant skills. So one of the things that Chris is going to be looking at is where do we get the talent from, and also, off the back of a recent report, what are the big ethical issues? So, Chris.
Okay. Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. So I'm going to spend a bit of time, as you say, talking about some of the challenges in here for the public sector, but also the opportunities for governments to seize the big data opportunity and put this into action for better public services. And this is really edited highlights from a report that we published last year on the Policy Exchange website, so that's free to download. If you'd like more details, then do please pull down a copy of it. So I'm just going to talk through, first up, I guess through a public sector lens, building on some of the insights from Malcolm and Sanju, how do we build this into initiatives that are going to make a difference to the lives of citizens? And when we looked at this, we cut it out into 5 broad categories. So first up was using big data tools and technologies to share data, bring data together across organizations, and in the process save time, save paper, save money. And some of this can be pretty straightforward stuff. So one of the great examples that people say to us, and you might say it's quite a small one, is linking together the passport service and the driving license systems, so that now if I need to get my driving license renewed, rather than fill in a long paper form and cut out a photograph and post it to something, actually the information can be pulled from the passport database, the driving license can be pre-populated and sent out to me. It's a small thing, but in a world where a lot of us are used to online and electronic transactions, it seems to make a big difference. And there are opportunities like that across the public sector where you've got systems in place that are legacy systems that aren't necessarily equipped for sharing data but could make a big difference. Second up, as we've been hearing just now, is about learning about business performance and learning about that in real time, understanding the productivity of different business units, how operations are working, and so on. And when you go to the data about public sector productivity, what you find is that over the last decade or so, productivity in the public sector in the UK has remained broadly flat, up slightly, but broadly flat. This isn't the case in other parts of the economy and other service sectors. And a lot of what's happening there is industry after industry seizing on data to understand what's happening in a business, optimize supply chains, push information down to managers and people in charge of operations so that they can optimize their activities. And again, large opportunities in the public sector for that kind of real-time information to make a big difference. Third up around this is using data to personalize services for a better user experience. So we're all used to services being personalized in a consumer context. Anyone who uses a social network or shops online or any of these sorts of activities will be familiar with a world where the organization that you're interacting with, because they know something about you, can start to tailor the service that they offer you. And that tends to be pretty valuable. We'll talk a little in a minute about some of the trade-offs around personal data and privacy, but for the most part, this seems to be a good thing. And again, there's opportunities here for the public sector that actually I deal with government and public services on a reasonably frequent basis. If the people delivering those services know things about me, then you can tailor that service to me. Don't show me the parts of the forms that I don't need to see. Don't offer the services that aren't relevant to my circumstances, but actually make it quick and easy for me to deal with the state. Examples like in healthcare and personalized medicine are a great area where the opportunity to do this and to make a real material difference to people's lives is large. Fourth up, using data to solve problems and start to predict the future. So we all know that there are some really knotty problems in the public sector that we've been struggling with for a long time. And one of the things that data and technology allows us to do is to make breakthroughs in our understanding of those difficult, knotty issues. I was at a conference on big data in Canada earlier this week, and one of the presentations there was about how big data analytics are transforming the way that we deal with crime in the public sector. that actually crime isn't as random as we often think it is, that if you bring together enough of the data, and people were talking about sensor data and video analytics, right, gait analysis, can you follow an individual through a crowd? Can you have a system that can tell the difference between a gunshot and a car backfiring? And if you can, then can you get the responders out to a situation faster than waiting for the call to come in? All of those sorts of activities give us opportunities to deliver a much more responsive, much more personalized, much more effective service to citizens. And the last big opportunity in here for governments is the way that this interacts with the economy and with growth. The sorts of big data tools and techniques that we've been talking about aren't something that exists solely in the public sector. Actually, delivering on this agenda requires a partnership with industry and the private sector. We had David Willetts, who's the Biz Minister for Universities and Science, in speaking at Policy Exchange earlier this year. And he published a pamphlet with us talking about his view of the 8 great technologies that will underpin the UK's industrial policy for the next decade. And it's packed with exciting, cool stuff, robotics, commercial application of space, regenerative medicine. And number 1 on his list is big data and energy efficient computing. That actually, in this arena, the UK is incredibly well placed to invest in big data technologies, and this will underpin not just opportunities for government to deliver savings and better services, but also all of these areas for innovation and growth in the wider economy. Okay, so 5 big areas of opportunity. How much is this worth? When we did the analysis last summer, we estimated that getting a grip on big data tools and technologies for the UK public sector is going to be worth between 16 and 33 billion pounds per annum. So this is not a trivial sum of money. And the opportunity cuts out into 3 broad categories. So first up is just the raw efficiency of the public sector, okay? Understanding what's going on in real time, optimizing operations, understanding things like procurement and buying the right products at the lowest price at the best times, understanding productivity across different parts of an organization. Because the public sector is so large, even marginal improvements on productivity and operations will deliver large savings. Second was the categories around detecting and reducing fraud and error and so on. The UK public sector is currently losing something like £21 billion a year to fraud in the public sector. We're losing another £10 billion a year to errors, and another £7 to £8 billion a year in unpaid debts. And the tools and technologies that are available now let us begin to bring data sets together to identify where those sorts of fraud and error are happening, and also actually to preempt some of them. You can get into a system where actually you say, I'm not going to wait until a mistake has been made and then try to match everything together afterwards to catch it, but actually I'm going to put a red flag up ahead of time so that the payment isn't made incorrectly and so on. And of course, benefits from potentially narrowing the tax gap. The tax gap in the UK is running at something like £35 billion per annum. There are unavoidably scarce resources to deal with compliance. Her Majesty's Revenue and Customs only have so many experts that they can deploy. So one of your difficult optimization questions is, okay, how do I deploy my tax compliance officers in a way which will bring in the most revenue? And again, bringing different data sets together and going to the data and doing the analytics will help you deploy those individuals in the most effective way. Okay, so 5 big opportunities, potentially very large savings. I'm going to talk a little bit now about a couple of the big challenges that we identified, particularly for the public sector. So the first up is capability, right? So it's one thing to say we've got the tools exist, the technology exists, we've got the IT platforms. But as we've been hearing this morning, that's not enough. You've got to have people in organizations, and this is particularly true for the public sector, that understand and are passionate about this agenda. So we talk a lot about data scientists. This is a particular and interesting skill set because it's not just about having great quant skills and the ability to code. It's also about being able to work with that data, develop it into powerful visualizations, tell a compelling story off the back of the data that will resonate with the decision makers, right, the senior people in the public sector, with ministers, and bring all of that together. Something that someone said to me once was that these people, these data scientists, it's like the really good ones, it's not just a sort of 9-to-5 job, that actually the best ones, because they're so interested, they're so passionate for the truth, you'll find them there crunching through the data, bringing together data sets that you didn't think, would ever be combined, because they're looking for the answers, and they're doing that late into the night in some circumstances because they're so engaged. Now look, that is a tremendous asset to an organization. It's also a very rare skill set, right? There's a shortage of data scientists in the economy generally. The chart on this page is for job vacancies using the keyword big data. And you can see it's flat until sort of 2010 and then sort of goes through the roof. Some studies done earlier this year suggested that we were looking at a shortfall of around 30,000 big data science professionals in the UK over the next few years. Work done by McKinsey has estimated a shortfall of 150,000 in North America. And one of the things they point up is also a shortfall of 10 times that number of data-savvy managers. So not just the data scientists, but having other people in the organization who understand enough about the issues to be intelligent consumers of the big data analytics and to commission good research. The second really knotty challenge in here is about responsibility. As we've been hearing this morning, big data lets you do some really incredible things, right? Lets you make breakthroughs and join dots together and develop insights which we wouldn't have imagined were possible even 10 years ago. But it also takes us very close to some lines around responsibility and ethics and privacy and integrity. So all of the brands that I've put up on this page, these consumer brands, all of these people, these organizations, depending on your perspective, you might say that they've pushed the envelope in terms of innovation, or you might say they've sailed pretty close to the wind in terms of privacy and how they've used data that belongs to individuals. When it comes to government, this is even more of an important issue. Right? So as a consumer, I've got a choice, right? I can choose not to, well, you might say I can choose not to use Facebook, right? Or I can choose not to shop at Target. It's very difficult for me to choose not to deal with the British government. And in that scenario, our take on this is that the state has a particular special responsibility to deploy these tools and technologies in a way which maintains the highest standards of ethics and integrity. That actually, when you bring these different data together, and when the most interesting data are the ones which sometimes are very personal, and when you're trying to develop insights which are going to help citizens, but at the expense of maybe getting very close to linking intimate things about them together, you've got to be very, very careful, and you've got to do this only when you can absolutely justify, in public policy terms, why we're going down this route. The answer that it's all very interesting and we're kind of curious, so we'd like to suck in all of your data is not good enough, right? And this is a real challenge. And one of the things that we put down in the report is, and perhaps we need some kind of code of responsible analytics, at least some dialogue with the general public about the difficulty of the issues here. And again, that's not a trivial challenge. So if you're anything like me, last time you went on the App Store or something and got an app, right, you scroll through 47 pages of disclaimers and so on, and you hit accept without reading it. This is a tough conversation to have with the general public, but government has to be the one to initiate it. Okay, I'm going to close up with 5 questions which we've been aiming at leaders in the public sector, but I think they probably apply more broadly, to start to understand how to take the first steps in bringing big data into a business and using it to solve some of the policy problems that we're after. So first up is, do we know what we know? Right? This is Donald Rumsfeld's known unknowns and all of that, right? If we sit down and we're really honest with ourselves, what is the scope of our knowledge about our business. How much of the activity in our business, actually, frankly, are we not sure about what's going on? And are we comfortable with that balance? Second, if we're really honest with ourselves, to what extent are we using data to drive our decision making? Where are we on that balance between having the dashboards and the analytics pushed all the way down to the people making decisions at the coalface versus using judgment and gut feel and so on? And different organizations are in different places, and different parts of organizations are in different places. But it's important to understand that is a trade-off, and it's a choice for us about where we fall on that. It's not simply a case of it being inevitable that we run some areas with data and some without data. Third up, how quickly can we get answers? Where are we in the world between understanding the performance of our business or our organization in real time versus weeks or months? What's our strategy for innovating around all of this, and how does this relate to our partnerships with the private sector? And finally, who in our organization is responsible? And in many respects, it doesn't matter who that is, but we need to know that it rests in one place and that person understands their role in leading the agenda. Okay, so that's it for me. Do please stay in touch. If you've got questions, I'll be around all day and very happy to connect afterwards on Twitter or over the web. Thank you very much.